Chapter 13. Why had she thought whiskey was a good idea? Mackenzie's eyes were gritty and her head pounded. Groaning, she rolled over on the bed, thankful she was between the sheets alone. Had Jake slept with her last night? The morning sun was entirely too bright, and she dragged a pillow over her head. Mac groaned again. Hangovers sucked. Mackenzie had a vague recollection of pushing herself against Jake's firm chest, of rubbing her achingly tight nipples shamelessly against him. And then, oh my God, I kissed him. She bolted upright. It was our first kiss, and I was drunk. She moaned. She'd kissed Jake and could barely remember a thing about it. Fuckity fuck. Several glasses of water, 2 Tylenol, and a shower later, Mackenzie felt somewhat more human. Although sitting in Quinn's light-filled kitchen, she fought the urge to squint. "Why is the sun so sunny this morning?" she grumbled to Dex, swallowing the last of her coffee. The dog, lounging at her feet, nosed her in commiseration. Jake had emerged from Quinn's home gym 20 minutes earlier, all sweaty and tousled. He'd slugged a bottle of water and dropped a quick kiss on the top of her head before heading to the shower. "Morning, babe," he drawled, coming back into the kitchen. "Feeling okay?" She hid her face in her hands. She'd basically mauled him last night, if she remembered correctly. There'd been such an intense need, desire that made her dizzy. She'd wanted to be close to him, couldn't get close enough, couldn't catch her breath, but oh God, it had been good. So good. And now he stood there, fresh and delicious, and she felt like a used tea bag, and not even English breakfast, green tea or something equally hideous. "I've been better," she admitted, peeking through her fingers at him. Dex's sharp back distracted them, followed by a soft rapping on the front door. She instantly tensed. "Isn't the evac area meant to be deserted?" she said, eyes wide. Jake growled low as he stalked toward the front door, Dex on his heels. "Jake? Mac? It's me, Chloe," came a muffled voice from the other side. In 2 large steps, Jake flung open the door and enveloped the petite blonde in a crushing bear hug, her relieved laughter stifled in his shirt front. "Hi to you too, little bro." She grinned, disentangling herself and promptly launching herself at Mackenzie. Tears, hot and salty, drenched Mackenzie's cheeks as Chloe, and then Rachel and Kat, engulfed her, arms banding them together as the sisters they were. Yipping, Dex bounced around their heels until Jake relegated him to the laundry room. "Shouldn't you be in the safe zone?" Mackenzie finally gasped around hiccuping sobs. "As if that dickhead Mayor Townsend could keep us from seeing you," declared Kat. A laugh exploded from Mackenzie. Kat may have the morals of a pirate, but she'd do anything for her friends. They hugged tighter. Finally pulling apart and settling somewhat, the 4 collapsed onto the sofa together. "I know it's only mid-morning, but we brought wine. Jake, can you see if Quinn has wine glasses?" asked Chloe, reaching for the 2 bottles of Pinot that Rachel had dumped onto the coffee table. She twisted the cap of the bottle open as Jake returned from the kitchen with 4 glasses and another bottle of water for himself. "I don't love this Pinot, but I also don't love being sober." Chloe poured generously. "Here's to having the same taste in alcohol," Mackenzie said, "and different taste in men," Kat and Rachel chimed in. The 4 women raised their glasses. "So, what's with the dog?" Kat asked. "I'm not surprised you found yourself a mutt, but where did it come from?" "It's a long story, but I think he's mine now," Mackenzie answered. "Are you allowed to be here?" She gulped at the light, dry wine in a bid to relieve her lingering hangover. "Mayor Dickhead has us on lockdown, but we have contacts on the inside." Kat waggled her eyebrows. "Quinn's on border patrol," Rachel clarified. "As long as we're back before his guard duty is over, no one will miss us." "It took you long enough to get here," said Chloe. "I was worried out of my mind, between you 2 and not hearing from Ash." She looked down. "It wasn't straightforward," said Jake. "We wondered if you'd have Peter with you," Rachel ventured, "but Quinn said it was just the 2 of you." With hindsight, Mackenzie wondered what her friends actually thought of her ex-boyfriend. Belatedly, she realized they'd never shown a huge amount of enthusiasm for her relationship. "Turns out my ex-boyfriend has a wife," she stated calmly, surprised by how little the knowledge rankled. The girls were aghast and suitably furious on her behalf. "Look, I should have seen it coming. My dating profile said I liked champagne and men with beards, which is basically a euphemism for I have good taste in alcohol and poor taste in men." Out of the corner of her eye, Mackenzie saw Jake run a self-conscious hand over the stubble gracing his face. And the signs were all there. It was stupid of me not to realize. "Don't be so hard on yourself," Kat consoled. "The mom in E.T. had an alien living in her house for days and didn't notice." Rachel spluttered, and Kat helpfully thumped her on the back. "God, I missed you," said Mackenzie, tears threatening to spill again. "Careful, babe. You're going to be calling Sanford home soon," teased Jake. Kat's eyebrows reached her hairline, and Rachel mouthed "babe" at Mackenzie, who quickly averted her eyes. "I am going to strangle him, slowly." "Speaking of Sanford, seems like a lot has happened since I left," Jake continued, oblivious. "Townsend must have mobilized quickly to evacuate the entire town into a safe zone and enforce a quarantine." "It's been a fucking debacle," Rachel said in her usual forthright manner. "Mom and all the other female counselors have been out of town on some kind of empowerment retreat, and the men on the council have become cavemen lunatics, with guns." "The council called a town meeting not long after you left," Rachel continued. "They had a checkpoint at the entrance of the town hall, and those with symptoms were diverted onto school buses and taken to Sanford Hospital. That's where they've set up quarantine. We were all given 2 hours to make sure we had everything we needed and be inside the safe zone." "How are they enforcing the zones?" Jake questioned. "They've armed pretty much all the men and have them walking border patrols." "And they won't give any weapons to the women," Chloe said. "Dickheads," spat Kat. "Where are the boundaries?" Mackenzie was trying to get her head around the new makeup of her hometown. Main Street down to the river, Town Hall, the distillery, and the middle school, and a couple of residential blocks. They've made anyone who lives within the safe zone accommodate everyone who lives in the evac area, except, of course, Townsend, who's living in his great big mansion all by himself. "But the hospital isn't in the safe zone," clarified Jake. "Nope, because who needs medical supplies in an emergency, right?" quipped Rachel sarcastically. As a vet nurse, she appeared to have taken personal affront to this decision. They should have set up quarantine in the high school and maintained access to the hospital. And they've tasked all the women with setting up a community kitchen and a daycare at the middle school. We're not even allowed to take the food and supplies in the supermarket and the hardware store. Apparently that's man's work. Chloe frowned. "So the council is running the show?" Jake asked. "Quinn mentioned the law enforcement was, dead," completed Rachel. "The mortality rate of this virus is unprecedented. I can't remember a lot of the historical infectious diseases component of my degree, but this goes way beyond anything we've ever seen before." "And there's no cure?" Mackenzie asked quietly. "Who knows? The internet and all other communication lines have been out for over 24 hours, and except for you, no one has been in or out of the town." "And all the dead?" Jake asked. "What are they doing with the bodies?" It was a valid question, but Mackenzie still wished Jake hadn't asked. These weren't the nameless and unknown dead she'd already witnessed. These were the people of her community that she'd grown up with, possibly even her father. "No one has died since we've been in the safe zone," Rachel replied. "Anyone with symptoms was removed before they set the boundary up, and no one else has come down with it since. I'm guessing they're all at the hospital, or in their homes." A shiver raced down Mackenzie's spine as she pictured the houses surrounding them, full of bloody-faced corpses. Glancing out the window, Chloe rose to her feet. "I hate to leave you, but we have to get back. If they know we've been here, they won't let us back in." Jake stood too, throwing an arm over Chloe's shoulders. What about Grams? How is she? The council made everyone over the age of 75 move into the Willows Travel Lodge, said Rachel. Because so many of us lived in the evac area and had to move in with people in the safe zone, the council did some consolidation. Something about it being easier to care for the elderly if they were all in the one place. Mackenzie could imagine that in the shock and chaos, it had been easy for the council to herd the townspeople wherever they wanted. Grams is hardly elderly. Chloe huffed. I'm going to check on her as soon as we get back. Give her my love, okay? Jake said. We'll see you tomorrow. As soon as they were alone again, Jake caught Mackenzie in his embrace, and he spun them around. Mackenzie's back met the closed door before she could think. She had time to gasp in surprise before his mouth descended on hers. Urgent and so right. His lips, a contradiction of soft and firm, explored hers as though he were savoring her, consuming her. Wow, hi. Mackenzie pulled back and gasped in air. Give a girl some warning next time. Consider that your warning, Jake growled, capturing her lips with his own again. She gave in and opened to him on a sigh, his tongue plundering and possessing. Gripping her ass, he pulled her snugly against him, his straining erection tight against her belly as they kissed, wet and deep. Jake was known to her, and not known. This wasn't the boy she'd grown up with. This was a man, one allowing his emotions to bleed through with his every touch, forging an intimacy that was so profound she was questioning everything she knew. Time spun out. She was lost to the rasp of his stubble, the rhythm of his lips, the firm claiming of his hands on her waist. Without his hold, her knees would have buckled. She was boneless, lost to the hunger between them. I don't think I can stand, she panted. I got you, baby girl. Reaching behind her thigh, Jake urged it up around his hip, notching them tight together. Mac moaned, grasping onto his shoulders to grind herself wantonly, shamelessly, anything to ease the aching throb between her legs. More. She needed more. Unhooking her leg, she reached between them, palming his erection through unrelenting jeans before tugging desperately at his belt buckle. Slow down, babe, he said into the crook of her neck, licking the sensitive skin. Slow down? We're standing against a door, he said, his eyes hungry, but resolve clear in his tightening jaw. This isn't going how I thought it would, she pouted. None of this is happening how I thought it would. He laughed, relieving the tension. I told you I loved you when I thought you were with someone else. You don't remember our first kiss. I didn't say I didn't remember, she protested. He smiled, his fingers gripping her chin gently and tipping her face up. Babe, our first time together will not be against a damn door. Are you worried I'll think you don't respect me? She looked up at him through lowered lashes. Because I'm totally okay with you disrespecting me, Jake. His groan reverberated through her, making her nipples pebble tighter, begging for his touch. And if you've waited for me as long as you say you have no idea how long I've waited for you, he ground out, grabbing her ass and turning her, guiding her palms above her head to rest flat against the door. You still want this? His whisper was hot in her ear, and he used his knee to nudge her legs into a wider stance. Because I can give you slow and sweet in a bed. I want this, she managed, her heart too large for her chest. The hard length of his body crowded her, dominant and assertive. She'd never wanted anything more in her life. His hand wound through her loose curls, tugging her head back so she could meet his smoldering eyes. Say it again. She licked her lips, delighting in the way his pupils dilated farther. I want this. I want you, Jake. Between one breath and the next, he was biting her neck, pawing roughly at her breasts and pinching at her taut, aching nipples. She arched her back into his chest as his other hand delved low, pushing aside her top to expose her stomach and then gliding down. Down. She hadn't realized he'd been holding back. She'd never have guessed behind his easygoing personality he harbored such dirty, beautiful desires. Her pussy clenched in frustrated anticipation. His palm was so large she had to spread her legs wider to accommodate him, allowing him access to her slippery heat. Growling, he tugged at her yoga tights, pushing them and her panties down as far as her position would allow. So fucking wet, he praised when his finger finally dipped into her folds, causing her to shudder uncontrollably. I need to taste how sweet you are. Through hooded eyes, she watched over her shoulder, fascinated, as he withdrew his hand and brought it to his mouth, sucking the finger inside. It was the hottest thing she'd ever seen. Locking their gaze, he dropped his hand to reclaim her, stroking assertively as his thumb circled her clit with agonizing gentleness. Rocking into his palm, her eyes fluttered closed, only to have him still. Groaning, she shifted on her feet. Eyes on me, baby girl, he instructed. More. She panted, pleaded. Of this? He asked, thrusting one thick finger, and then two, deep inside her. Yes. Yes. The eye contact was just as effective as his talented fingers at opening her wide, exposing her vulnerabilities. He was in total control, watching as her orgasm gathered momentum and tightened, tantalizingly close. Jake, she yelled as she teetered on the edge, desperate to fall. Dex howled from the laundry room. Shifting, Jake braced himself against the door, leaning on a forearm and allowing his weight to press her forward, engulfing her wholly. Shh, baby, bite me. Tensing at the pleasure pain of imminent release, she bit down on the corded muscle, muffling her cries as he pumped his fingers, sure and deep, quickening the pace until she didn't know if she could stand it any longer. Just as she was sure she couldn't be strung any tighter, his fingers curled and stroked, and the orgasm crested, before crashing violently through her. She shook, and when she opened her eyes, her vision was momentarily black. Turning, she sagged into Jake's arms, breathless and not entirely sure what the hell had just happened. You were worth the wait, he whispered into her hair,